It used to be that we could give you a general estimate of the ratio of yes or no RSVPs you might get based on your count. Now it's a little hard to predict. Hey everybody, it's Leanne from Newlyweds TV, and I'm here today to talk with you about a topic I think is very interesting, and I think you're going to find it interesting too. What has changed about planning a wedding since COVID? A lot of things have changed in the time since March of 2020 when everything shut down. Some of what I'm going to talk to you about are things that I've seen in planning here in our region, which we are Midwest based in Chicago in the United States. These things might not apply everywhere, but just know this is what we're seeing here. Guest RSVPs are a lot less predictable. It used to be that we could give you a general estimate of the ratio of yes or no RSVPs you might get based on your count. Now it's a little hard to predict. Sometimes you might get more yeses because your folks really want to celebrate. They haven't had an event or a wedding to go to in a long time, so they all want to be there. But other times you might have family or friends that are a little more cautious, a little more nervous, and they might decide not to come from that. We're also seeing less grandparents and older guests. Sometimes those folks that are in those at-risk groups just decide that they shouldn't join the celebration. More guests are canceling last minute for COVID reasons or other reasons, and they're typically feeling less guilty about that because I think COVID taught people to prioritize their health in a different way, where they might feel obligated before to go to an event they had RSVP'd to even if they weren't feeling great. Now people think that twice about that and sometimes stay home. Vendors are needing more turnaround time for proposals, adjustments, and even just plain old email responses. Sometimes, even as a client who hasn't booked a venue or a vendor, it's harder to get a quick response. And then later, once you have booked, your vendors are often very busy working with their upcoming clients, so it might take longer to get responses beyond that. We've also had some difficulty scheduling venue tours just because availability is more difficult to find, and getting responses back in a timely manner makes that part difficult as well. Overall, it seems like most people are more stressed right now. For vendors that might have to do with staffing issues or overworking, they are probably putting in overtime most weeks during their busy season. For clients, I think sometimes people are a little bit less patient because they feel like they've already been waiting a long time for their celebration. So there's some times where that becomes difficult. And in my role as a planner, trying to keep those two folks moving things forward and keeping those people happy can be kind of difficult. We've also noticed that things are more expensive. I'm sure you're noticing that as you go buy groceries and gas and things like that. And all of that does trickle into your other expenses. Catering costs are higher. Transportation costs for all of your vendors are higher. Also, availability is different. It's harder to get some high-end items or some specialty items because there are still production and supply chain issues happening. For some vendors, during COVID, they took the time to set some new boundaries, maybe related to how often they respond to emails or when they're working early or late at night. Since demand this year is particularly high, some of those vendors have worked really hard to maintain those boundaries. And sometimes they just don't have availability. The caterer you might have wanted is already overbooked for your weekend, or the rental company is literally out of chairs, so they can't bring you more. This is something that we hadn't experienced in the past, at least not in the past 10 years or so while I've been planning. So I know this all sounds a little bit bleak, but there are some things we can do about it. First, plan even further ahead than you might have thought. Having more lead time before your event is going to allow you not to stress if it's taking a little longer to nail things down or to get responses from people. You might also want to reconsider your overall plan. Bigger is not always better. I feel like during COVID, we actually learned that some of those smaller events can be great solutions in certain cases. So consider that that might be a route for you to take. You've also heard this from me before, but I will just reaffirm that it's really important to prioritize your plans. Most of all, be gracious and patient and flexible as much as you possibly can. Almost every wedding vendor I know is really stretching themselves right now, and many actually left the industry. So the folks that are here still working for you as vendors are doing it because they love it. They want to do a good job for you, and they're doing the best they can. So try to always keep that in mind as you're waiting for a response from a venue or waiting for a email back from your photographer. Just know that they are most likely working a ton of hours just to try to keep things rolling for themselves and for their clients, and they're doing it because they love it. Just be gracious and patient and stay focused on the things that are most important to you, most important to your partner, and most important to getting you to the wedding that you could love. So I hope this update on the state of wedding planning since COVID is really helpful to you. I also hope you never have to deal with this issue, but if you ever need to deal with your venue or vendors canceling on you, click the video linked up on screen now so you can learn our tips on how to handle that. And whatever is going on, I hope your planning is going awesome. But if it's a struggle at all, just know that we are here for you and we have the advice and information you need, and we'll see you next time.